Hi everybody, how are you? I'm just going to wait a few seconds to see if this connection sits well, but if it does, then I'll keep going. I hope everybody's been quite well. Today I'm talking about the topic of parenting, and it's something that is quite important to me, and it was one of the reasons that I got into the field of human development and evolution in the first place. So this is very exciting for me to talk about. So I want to start off by saying this is a live platform. So for those of you that have never joined before, I see we've already got someone on board. I couldn't see who gave that love heart, but thank you. Feel free to communicate and ask questions. Wanda, that might have been you. Feel free to ask questions and communicate, because I want to be able to answer questions live as well, so this makes this fun. And you said that you need this today, so I hope you find value in this, and feel free to add anything else to this as well. Hi, Bianca. So I'd like to say share, if there's anything that particularly resonates with you, throw in a little love heart or two, because then that really lets me know, thank you Bianca, that that's relevant to you and I can expand on that topic. Feel free to share these with anybody that you find is somebody that could utilize this information as well, and that it would be very powerful for them to have this. So without further ado, I'm going to get onto the topic, and today is about being an inspired parent. Now, everybody has a different meaning on what the word parent may mean, and meaning mattering on your culture or how you've grown up and your beliefs, you're going to have a completely different visual on that. So we can look at parenting as looking after children, but that really wouldn't be enough for me. So it was kind of like when I discussed the topic of, are we meant to be with one person forever? And I went into the dynamics of, well, anybody can stay with anybody forever, but how do we keep the fulfillment levels up? So when we're talking about parenting, what I'm going to be talking about is, how do you stay an inspired parent? How do you appreciate both the support and challenge, so that the journey of raising children doesn't just become about sending them to school and paying for their education and everything else, but it becomes an inspired journey where you're enjoying the whole lifespan, all the way from the start, which is prior to having children, all the way to having children, getting beyond what you'd almost call like the infatuation stage or the honeymoon when they're children, actual babies, and then going on beyond that to once the children leave the family household, and how do you find appreciation in that? Because I know that Wanda asked the question, you know, my children will be leaving soon, or they are now, and how do I find appreciation in that? And I believe that when you can have fulfillment for larger periods of your life and enjoy the whole journey, then you open up the potential for you to actually enjoy your life. Because ultimately, being a parent is a large proportion of your life. That can be an investment for 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years of you really investing into these children. So I want to talk about that today. And one of the first aspects that I really want to talk about is, where is it that you got your education from? So if you think about this, if you were to go to university, or you wanted to become a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or doctor, or nurse, or anything like that, you'd spent years and years really formatting the education to understand and know what skills were necessary. And you'd go through a vast amount of tests as well to make sure that you could actually know and were certified in that area. Well, when it comes to parenting, I still laugh about this, but you literally, anybody can just have sex, produce a child, and they give it to you at the hospital, and you can just walk out with it. And that's it. And it's up to you to really figure out what the hell is going on. And your children are probably one of the greatest investments that you're going to have, and there's very little education that's actually formally given. So as a parent, whenever we have the idea that everyone in the world is going to produce this perfect parent, and by the way, every human being has a different image of the perfect parent as well, know that that's not going to happen. And I've worked with hundreds of clients in dissolving shames, guilt, sadness, hurts, infatuations, and resentments towards parents, or parents that are dissolving that towards their children. And one of the greatest things I can recommend is realize that you are going to do the best that you can with the resources that you have, and that your parents are going to do the best that they can with the resources that they have. That each individual is just another human being on planet Earth trying to figure it out as we go along the journey. So if you're a new parent, or if you're a parent that's wondering why you haven't just magically turned into this picture perfect model that you may have in your head, know that that's unrealistic. It's going to take some work, much like anything else. And the more work and the more value that you have for increasing your potential as a parent, then the more you're going to be able to actually grow and strive in that area. So I'm just going to have a look here. It's letting go, yep, and realizing that they've grown up. I see them as kids and they see themselves as adults because they're 19 and 20 now. Well, Wanda, I'll answer this question because I think it's a great one. During any cycle, so when you invest into something like becoming a parent, then part of that is also you're investing into the end part of the process where they go out and they become their own individuals themselves, just like you did. Now, if you perceive or have a resentment or some kind of fear of that happening, it's because you're seeing one side of it. Anytime you have a fear, you're exaggerating the negative and minimizing the positives. And when you do that, your mind is going to create some kind of dis-ease inside of your body. It's like a negative emotion, just to let you know that you're having an imbalanced perception, because it's neither positive or negative. I'm sure there's been times where the children are at home creating messes, just running around, not listening to a thing that you're saying, where you're thinking, wow, I really just would not mind them getting out of the house. So you've had moments where you perceive it's just as beneficial or it's just as enjoyable to not have them there as it is to have them there. The real key is to master your perceptions and see the benefits and the services equal to the drawbacks and the disservices of the children being and not being in your life. When you can do that from an early on stage, you can really enjoy whichever stage yourself and the children are going through. Because if you hold on to the children, and I know that when I was growing up, especially in my teens around that age, and I've worked with a lot of clients that have said the same thing, if the more that your parents tried to hold on to you, the more that you resented your parents and tried to push them further away. And the more that they tried to keep you a certain way and project their values onto you and change you, the less that you wanted to connect with them and the more that you went out to connect with the outer world. So that over challenge in your perception created a desire inside you to actually go out and see the world, but restrict and move away from your parents. So really, it comes down to your perception, because the children were always going to leave the household. But your ability to see the benefit and the service in that and see how that serves all 7 areas of your life, including your highest values, and truly appreciate that, and you know that you can apply the D Martini method, and that'll help you cut that down from days, weeks, months, or years to finding that state of balance in mere hours. That is what will help you transition and move forward. I know that since I've left Melbourne and moved to Sydney, one of the amazing things that I've been able to watch is when I was in Melbourne, my relationship with my dad had grown and my mum, and we were very close. And my brother didn't have as close a relationship with my dad. Well, the minute that I moved out and came to Sydney, I noticed the quality of the time that I actually have with my parents is so much different now. When I was living at home with my parents, and even after that, when I moved out and I'd come once a week, when I ate at home, I don't know if you guys are like this as well that are watching, my dad would say, have you eaten all the food again? You eat everything in the house, because I just love to eat. Well, when I would come back home once a week after moving out for a year, my dad would literally stop whatever he was doing, sit down, have a conversation with me. I noticed that when I was living at home, I had quality. Quantity. There was a large amount of time, but the quality was sacrificed because it was something we got used to. But the minute that I moved out of home and I started managing my life and seeing them less, the quality went up. So now when I come to Melbourne, it's amazing how in-depth and the time and the appreciation that we have. So it really gets me to see that I had benefits whether I'm in Melbourne just as equal as I do now that I'm in Sydney. And it's actually sometimes the time apart that actually creates that quality time. So I have a real appreciation for both of those. So you've written here, true, you just made me cry by saying that because it's true. It really is. If your children were in your face all the time, honestly, you'd have no appreciation for them. If anything, you start telling your friends, I'm sick and tired of this, they're doing this, and it's whinging and it's complaining. But when you can have a great balance of that. And that leads on to my next topic. You see, there's this image that every single parent is meant to be always nice, always caring, always there, always supporting their children, etc., etc. And that's completely impossible. You see, in this universe, we live in a universe that even down to the atomic structure, it's comprised of atoms, and atoms are made of a half positive proton and a half negative electron energy. Therefore, if the universe is made out of energy that's half positive and negative, and we're made out of energy, and we're made out of an atomic structure, At what stage should we expect ourselves to be one side or the other? There's a beauty and magnificence in both. So it is actually a parent's job to support and challenge their children. And children will like or dislike the support or challenge, mattering on how much it's actually in aligned with what they value or don't value. So I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, I had a huge drive for things that were the complementary opposite of what my dad had a drive for. So what you'll find is let's start off with a relationship. When you first enter into a relationship, quite often you're in the infatuation stage. So they call this the honeymoon. So in the honeymoon stage, you're seeing more positives and negatives, more similarities and differences, and more advantages and disadvantages. And in fact, I'm going to do a video soon on dating and the illusion that most people go on, especially now with the Tinder era, where people are going into dates, they're pretending to be half of themselves, not showing the other half, pretending it doesn't exist or not letting the other person see it, only for months later when the person gets to know them, they see that other side and think, who the hell is this? Because they've gotten used to a one-sided version. So I would much rather start to introduce the idea that we love all parts of ourselves and introduce and show that to people as soon as possible so they get a wise idea what they're investing their time and energy into. So that to me is a much wiser idea. But if you have a look at the relationship cycle and where that starts off, you think someone has more similarities than differences. That's why you select them. But as you get to know them over the years, and I watched this really funny video on Facebook, and it was the difference between when you first start dating and then when you've been dating for a large period of time. And in the first one, it had a guy walking into the bathroom and his girlfriend was doing makeup. And in that one, he kind of went, oh, sorry, babe, I'll come back. And then they had another one where it had been like they'd been dating for years, and he just kind of burst in, went to the toilet, did a number one or number two, didn't really matter. And that's because they'd gotten comfortable around each other. So if there's two sides and you're appreciating both sides of the person, and as a relationship grows, you actually realize that quite often you're pairs of complementary opposites. Now what you have is two people with different sets of values. So if you have different sets of values, you're going to have different sets of ways that you value and want to share and bring up the children. So in my family household, my dad had a very high value for finances and education. And my mum had a very high value for family. She had a value for education and finances, but she wanted to look after the family, and they played the pairs of opposites. So growing up, I really had a high value for socializing and going out, and I perceived my mum was supportive because she had similar values and she usually accepted those and helped me gain them. And I perceived my dad was challenging because in all the areas of life I wasn't mastering, he was actually pushing me and telling me I could do better and all of those things. The more addicted I was to support, the less I appreciated my father. The more addicted I was to support, the more I looked towards my mum. But the reality is, looking back, up until about 25, I didn't have to do much in my life. I didn't grow much. And that was because as long as I was overly supported, I didn't have to grow the neurological connections in my mind to go out and do anything. So that meant that I literally, and we know this with children, from a young age, if you give a child everything and you overly support it, it doesn't gain the resources to take on challenges in all 7 areas of life, which means mentally it's weaker and more susceptible for things like depression. Physically, it's not as strong or more susceptible to things like bullying. Socially, it doesn't grow the dynamics or the urge to move outside the family household, and it can repress and stay socially timid in home. These days, kids just kind of stay on the internet and they'll stay there and get bullied there, but it'll increase the probability of that. Financially, they won't go out and learn how to actually acquire things for themselves because they'll just learn to strategize and utilize their parents as that. Because we have strategies for everything that we want to achieve in life. But if it's just given to us, that strategy becomes just taking. So overly supporting doesn't work. If we overly challenge a child as a parent, then what you'll find is that the child wants to get the hell out of the house as soon as possible, wants to disconnect from you, and there's no appreciation on either end. And it ends up with large arguments in the family household. But if you give the child a perfect balance of support and challenge, what you find is an equilibrated place where the child gets challenged to continue to incrementally grow, but at the same time it's supported to feel that it actually has that support to keep moving forward. And funnily enough, the universe is comprised of protons and electrons. And if you look at a proton, the positive support can be seen as positive, and an electron a negative, and the negative can be seen as a challenge. And we're in a universe that is a perfect balance between support and challenge, maximizing the evolution of a child. So know that as a parent, If you align with your children's values, they're going to think that you support them and you're a good parent. And if you go against their values, they're going to perceive that you're a bad parent. But you're not here to do one, you're here to do both, because it maximizes their evolution. And quite often, and this is something that I really believe from working with so many parents, I hear one thing regularly. Every parent that I work with wants to make sure that they equip their children to the greatest degree for what life has to offer. Because they know that if they can give their children the wisdom of the ages without the aging process and teach them how to be equipped for life to the greatest degree, that if something was to happen to them as a parent and they knew that their children could look after themselves, then they knew that they had done their job. They could actually say, yes, I'd done my job as a parent to the best degree that I could. And that went beyond just supporting and giving money, because what's the use in just giving a child up until they're 25 or 26 absolutely everything in the world, but not having them be able to handle it, but then leaving them with a large amount of finances and things like that they're unable to handle. They're just going to throw it away, and they have to learn how to take on the challenges to reaccumulate that. So as a parent, your job is to support and challenge. Not every parent is going to meet this perfect model. In fact, I've never met one that does. So give yourself a little bit of slack and know that you can grow and learn exactly how to assist your children by supporting and challenging them. But wherever you are, that's perfect to get started, to go out and be an inspired parent. Learning the tools to control your perceptions and master them so you can appreciate every step of the journey. Whether that's having the child or after having the child. I've worked with mothers that have had postnatal depression, and we've been able to assist them to overcome that. And part of what that came down to was learning how to control their perceptions of what had happened. In one case, it was the feeling of the loss of control of their life and the loss of freedom. And the minute we were able to dissolve that, they were actually able to appreciate the new forms of freedom that they had with their children. And just like you said, Wanda, so if you look at the stage afterwards when the children are moving on and learning to have absolute appreciation for that stage, then your whole life will become something that you can view, review again, and share with others and appreciate. Because in your life, sometimes we get addicted to certain outcomes and the way we think life should be. But life is forever changing. So if we can change with life, if we can grow appreciation for it, if we can get a deeper understanding and really learn the tools and resources to enjoy the whole journey, then we can have an inspired life, we can also be inspired parents, and we can appreciate every level of the journey. Now, one of the last aspects that I want to talk about is having a balance of narcissism to altruism. Now, I've heard this multiple times in the last couple of weeks. I was very blessed when I was in Melbourne to meet up with a couple of friends, and we had a discussion, one of which was that in a mother's group that this particular friend was talking to me about, there was a lot of mothers experiencing postnatal depression. They put their children as the number one thing in their world, but to the degree where they'd actually minimize themselves and what was important to them. And due to that happening, and I wrote an article similar to this called Dissolving the Supermum Myth, they'd actually minimized their self-worth and were building up resentment towards the children. Now, I don't believe that works, because if you have resentment, and hi Rachel, by the way, Rachel and I have this funny thing where I used to call her wifey, because she's just a gorgeous girl. So now that I've got a girlfriend who will be my wifey, I still call her wifey because she's still a beautiful girl. So great to have you on board, and thanks for the love hearts. Now, as a parent, you are in 100%, in fact, any individual watching this, you're in 100% control of your life. And the difference between your life and someone that you may like, admire, or absolutely want to have the life as theirs is the decisions and the actions that they take, and they're directly proportionate to how much they value having the life that they want. Now, I've almost died 8 times, so I don't believe in not making decisions and taking actions that are going to allow you to acquire the life that you want to have. So if you value your children more than you do, instead of having an equilibrated balance, and you put all of their needs in front of yours, that it might look to other people like you're the ideal present, or parent, the only challenge being the amount of resentment that you build up. And that resentment isn't what's wrong with you. It's actually the human psychology trying to bring an equilibrated balance so that you can love and appreciate your own life and love and appreciate your children's life, and learn how to communicate and have a balance in both of those. So I highly recommend, if you're having children or you've had children, look at the values factor. I'll put a link to that below as well. But find out what's truly valuable to you as a person outside of the children, because you were a person before. It's the same with your relationship as well. Don't put your relationship on the back burner because you have children. If you put one of the most important aspects, the fundamental building blocks, the foundation of the children, and you put that on hold and look after the children but not after the relationship, then the children are going to watch the two parents that are uninspired, unconnected or disconnected, and unappreciative of each other, arguing the whole time. So what was the purpose of that in the first place to even go into that? So it's wise to make sure you have time for yourself. And I've heard people say all the time, I don't have time. You have the same 24 hours a day as anybody else. The level of mastery that you have of your mental states and your emotions and your perceptions in your life will dictate whether you use words like can't, don't, won't, all of those things. You can. And it's up to you to do that and absolutely nobody else. So if you're having trouble overcoming that, or if you have family pressures, feel free to touch base with me. I've worked with a lot of different clients to help them build up that muscle in their mind so they could actually learn how to have a balance. And there's been some amazing outcomes from that. I've had clients that learn how to actually go out and have time for themselves away from the children, and from that time away when they came back, they found that the appreciation absolutely grew. Because their self-confidence and self-appreciation grew for themselves, their children became a lot more inspired by what they were watching. And hi Sophia, great to have you on here. So by them learning how to increase their self-worth and their children's other worth, they gain the ability to actually go out and appreciate all aspects of their life and their children. Now, when they did that, the time away from the children actually caused the children to become more entrepreneurs and learn how to manage their own life and let go of the addictions of being very close and tight to their parents and relying on everything. And that allowed them to actually increase their potential, their power, their confidence, and their certainty at the same time. There was a win-win situation. And it took a while for some of the parents that I've worked with to actually give themselves permission to do that until they actually saw that happening as an outcome. Now know, the more that you put your children on a pedestal, the greater the possibility when the children grow up and move forward that you're actually going to have problems with them moving forward, because it's going to break that infatuation bubble that you create. So if you apply these principles from early on, especially when the children are born, and give yourself permission to do some tough love and also be that supportive parent, you're going to be able to play both sides and you're going to be able to appreciate both sides. Know that your children will have times where they like and admire you when you're in line with their values, other times when they won't, when you're going against their values. But both of those are necessary to create resilience, and most of the time the areas that you're challenging them in will be in the areas that they're weaker, because if they're completely strong in an area, then you'll support and assist them in that. And both of those are necessary. We're organisms on planet Earth, and we're here to evolve. And if we don't evolve, we dissolve. That's a reality. Anything that isn't strong gets eaten in a predator-prey system. So if you're not teaching children to be strong, and that takes support and challenge, that takes time away and with them, then you're going to have certain outcomes, and you're going to have symptomology and psychology, thoughts inside of your mind, or resentments or emotions to try and help you bring that back into balance. So know that your emotions are perfectly normal. They're trying to bring you back into a state of balance. You're already an amazing parent. But if you'd love to work through, I do have a family dynamics workshop that I do as well, and it's a one-on-one over Skype. If that's something that's interesting to you, whether you're a child who has parents that you have a baggage towards and want to move forward from, or if you're a parent that would love to increase the potential so that you could have greater levels of appreciation, feel free to touch a base, because that's a really amazing subject for me. And the reason that it's such an amazing subject, and some of my clients are actually clicking love hearts on here, but the reason it's such an amazing subject is because one of the reasons that I got into personal development was because I wanted to overcome a challenge I was facing for over 20 years with my father. And when I was able to do that, I increased my appreciation, I increased my gratitude, I increased the love and certainty that I had for this person. And that was amazing. And when I did that, I said, I really hope one day that I have the opportunity to work with as many people as possible and show them that same level of technology. Because I feel that if I hadn't done what I did, which was the Dean Martini method, and one weekend in under 12 hours, I wouldn't have realized the potential of what was really in front of me. I wouldn't have built that gratitude and appreciation, which is actually now, my dad's one of my best friends and I love spending time with him. So 20 years dissolved in under 12 hours, and a relationship that could have gone another 20 years without having the greatest level of love and appreciation. I've probably worked with over 50 to 100 plus clients just with parents and things like that. And I know Naj, we've worked on some amazing things with family dynamics with you. So thank you as well for being here today. So to all the parents out there, to all the children, your relationships are surrounded with love and appreciation. Apply some of the tools and principles that you've heard here, and you'll be able to increase that love, appreciation, gratitude, and certainty for your life and whichever situation that you're in. So thank you for your time. So true. After my son worked with you, our relationship changed. Thanks, Wanda. He's amazing. Him and I have the funniest chats when we talk as well. He's just an amazing, amazing child. I look forward to the next time I have an opportunity to talk to him. Sophie, thank you very much for joining in. You're also amazing. Cute little dolphin thing there. And fromage, which means cheese in French, which is Tiffany, who, congratulations, has had 3 absolutely beautiful children and is an amazing mother. I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys the next time I'm in Melbourne. Hopefully we can connect and getting to meet the other 2. So that's an amazing experience. So inspired parents, give yourself permission to enjoy the whole journey. You're here to love, appreciate, and do amazing things. And I can't wait to connect with you guys or anyone that you care about. I'm open. Feel free to inbox me. Feel free to reply to this. And I'll read one more comment. I hear you through the breakthrough. I can call my dad now, and I've changed. Thank you for the day supporting. You've done some amazing work, and I love watching your relationship grow with your parents, Naj. So thank you very much. I want to give that a little love sign just to say that was an amazing comment. So enjoy an inspiring day, guys. Wanda, thanks a lot for the topic. Love hearing from you guys, and I'm looking forward to connecting with everybody that replies to this. Ciao.